What's up everyone, it's Nicole again, welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing the Lian Li O11 Dynamic Mini case, already released where I am located. This case is retailing about less than $100 and it's really causing quite a hype since it was announced in the CES 2020. So this case is a full 38 liters, looking every bit as good as its bigger brother that was so popular since it was launched, and it features tempered glass on the front and the side panels. It is highly versatile, and with its modular interior, whether you are upgrading from your current PC build to a new case or you are building a new PC build altogether, it will be able to accommodate various size motherboards as well as radiators, with lots of space for variation despite being a mini version of the dynamic O11. So the O11 Dynamic Mini is shorter than a mid-tower, though wider at the side, and it's quite large compared to a mini ITX case. Here we have it in side-by-side size comparison with the NR200 mini ITX case. So you can see that it is still significantly larger, although it's released as a mini version. That said, it still takes up a smaller footprint compared to a full or mid-tower setup. So this case here is available in both black and white, and the one that we have here features black tempered glass. It's got black brushed aluminium on the top, on the sides, at the back as well. Except for the area where you have the power button and USB points on the top, that comes in a black acrylic strip, which we are not so big fans of, mainly because, you know, black acrylic gets scratches really easily, and with USB points there where you keep plugging things in and out, it's not really a big deal, but something to know. So the O11 Dynamic was popular for its good ventilation. The Mini is no different. You've got lots of breathing space in the rear and the bottom and the top, even at the back, and all of these sides except the rear comes with a mesh which is magnetic, easy to remove. You want to take it off, you want to wash it, it's easy peasy. The structure of this case itself, the PSU is easily accessed from the back, your SSDs, and there is a dedicated space for hard drives where they are nicely stowed away and yet not too tedious for sorting out cable management. So here in my build, we're featuring a ITX motherboard. We've got air cooler with radiator attached to the top of the case and an RTX 3080 GPU. So don't mind the ugly colors of the RGB right now because it is really just set up, and I wanted to bring this video to you guys quickly, so please ignore the colors. There's lots of space available for everything else in this build. If you're doing water cooling, it's going to work perfectly fine too. So in short, let's get down to what we like about this case and what we would have preferred or expected. So first and foremost, let's discuss why we like the O11 Mini. First of all, radiators. If you are upgrading your build from another case and you do not want to change most of your parts, this case is just going to work for you. So when it comes to radiators, because of its modular design, there is really a lot of options where you want to put the radiator. You could go against the commonly known norms of having the radiator at the bottom. You could have it at the side, you could have it at the top. There are just really so many options you can go for. But do note, you may have to do some homework if you're bringing a radiator that's more than 240 mm. It really depends what motherboard you're going to be using, how you're going to restructure this case in order to, and where you want to fit the radiator, and that is all going to make a difference before you can decide where to put the radiator. So that brings me to the second point that we like about this case, which would be there is really quite a lot of customization that you could apply, which depends on the motherboard that you're using. So if you're using an ATX motherboard, what it means is that you will have 7 slots available for your GPU, for your capture card, whatever you like to have. Having said that, your top and bottom clearance becomes narrower at about 25 millimeters. So that's for consideration if you're intending to put fans up there. However, if you're using a mini ATX or ITX motherboard, you have the variation to reduce the slots to 5 or 3, which will then give more headroom on the top and bottom of the case, where you can have fans, radiators, and so forth, making the arrangement a lot more flexible. So the fact that it can cater to multiple motherboards, in my opinion, is really very cool because You could be upgrading from a mini RTX case and you want to do water cooling or something different, therefore you're looking for a bigger modular build, and you do not have to purchase all your components again, and you could keep the money to upgrade your graphic card or your CPU. So here you will be able to see that in the case it has different slots for you to install your motherboard, and they specifically numbered the spots you will be using for a 3-slot, 5-slot or 7-slot configuration. On the rear end, to configure the setup for 3 slots, 5 slots and 7 slots as well, you could quickly just remove the panels without the use of a screwdriver, and then this is what you will be looking at in terms of each setup. So the other thing we really like about this case as well is cable management. When I turned to the back of the case and I was looking for the main cables to connect to the motherboard, I was just taken aback. It was just so shocking to see everything nicely tucked away, and that would be the same way we would nicely tuck away all the cables after the build is done. So there is a column for SSD which nicely keep all the cables hidden from sight. You can easily remove it with a screw on top, although I would really have preferred if we didn't need a screwdriver to remove the bottom screw. And because this case uses only a SFX power supply, so all the accompanying PSU cables are shorter, which helps deal with the big mess that we potentially may have at the back of the case whenever we're doing cable management, because there's just so much cables going around. So the other point would be very much the modular setup of this case, which we have already touched on earlier. It is just so spacious. So if you're intending to move on to the Geforce RTX 30 series, which are generally bigger GPUs, this case does support GPU length clearance of 395mm. So no issues at all. Here I am featuring a RTX 3070, and it is still quite substantial in the space available. So the last point I would touch on this case would be fans. With a space like this, you can literally have fans everywhere to create some form of a perfect push-pull to get the best ventilation for your case, especially if you're doing a lot of gaming and so forth. So I haven't really put any fans in there because the intent was to put something up quickly just to demonstrate what it's going to potentially look like. And even with the basic fix, this is all the extra space that's sitting around on the side, on the top, on the bottom, and the rear as well are exactly the places I've highlighted that you could have fans there. So on the rear, you could easily fit a 120mm fan. On the top and bottom, you could have 240mm or 320mm fans that will fit comfortably and snugly in that space. On the side, we are looking at 240mm or 220mm fans as well, which you can consider. And of course, if you are big RGB fans, this case has a lot of potential for RGB fans everywhere. However, the key thing I'd like to highlight if you are thinking of putting radiator or fans on the side is to take note of the depth available. If you're using a relatively long GPU, it may obstruct with the fan and the radiator. There may not be enough space. So do measure that and do a little bit of homework before you start. So now let's move on to what we would have preferred or expected from the O11 Dynamic Mini. So we spoke a lot about fans. This case comes with no fans. This to me is a bit shocking because there's so much space for fans and ventilation, and perhaps the intent was to keep everything freestyle for its users. That's why there were no fans that came along when you purchase it. In any case, it's not a deal breaker, no fans. If you are upgrading from an existing build, you may have some fans that you want to bring along, you may want to make some changes, some upgrades, you can. If you're building something from scratch, then think about it. You have to buy your own fans. Well, you could use the opportunity to buy RGB fans, because most of the time cases that comes with fans come with normal fans and not those which are more powerful or those that comes with fancy lights. If the case like that, you want fancy lights. So the last point that I would like to highlight, from my perspective, it matters to me, is the fact that this case uses only SFX power supply unit, which means that some form of investment is still required for upgraders moving from an existing mid-tower, full-tower build that uses an ATX power supply unit. So from my perspective, it is quite questionable why they have this case build that allows for ATX motherboard, mini ATX motherboard, ITX motherboard, so much flexibility, but when it comes to power supply unit, I'm sorry, you can only use an SFX power supply. There is just no flexibility in that area, which is something I can't quite grasp what Lian Li is thinking. So SFX power supply units in my region is exceptionally hard to find. It is constantly out of stock everywhere. I've intended for a Corsair SF750. It was just impossible to locate. It is just out of stock. So here I'm using a Cooler Master SFX V750 Gold, which is also available in 850 watts, 650 watts, 550 watts. The VSFX series is Cooler Master's debut entry into SFX power supply units and has an 80 plus gold efficiency rating, full modular cabling, a 92mm FTP fan, and comes accompanied with a SFX to ATX bracket so that it becomes more portable over time as you upgrade from case to case. So with that basically sums up our review of the Lian Li O11 Dynamic Mini. If you would like to know more about this case and have any clarifications you may have, do leave in the comments as well. Be happy to provide any tips or clarifications that you may need. In any case, thanks so much for watching. Do give us a like and subscribe to our channel if you've not already done so. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.